Let's try to put feminism in context. It's been 2 million years since humans discovered cooking, and that really was the time of female domesticity. It began from then and it has continued. A woman's place has always been in the kitchen, at home, to keep the home fires burning, to raise children, etc. Now, for the first time in 2 million years, that is changing. Women have entered the workplace, they're getting to work, and that has happened only over the last 50 years or less.
People's reaction to the word feminist has always intrigued me. A lot of times, my male classmates would react to someone who named themselves as being a feminist by calling them out and saying, "Why don't you care more about equality?" Or if it was a man who called himself feminist, they would say, "I don't think feminism is really for men, it's actually a woman's issue." And I really take issue to that reaction because to me, feminism has always been about equality. At the same time, by maybe naming it an equalist movement, we're taking away from the oppression of women all these years. By calling it feminist, we're naming the fact that society is unequal and that both sides don't have to strive for equality with the same fervor, and clearly one side is more privileged than the other. And that's why it's important to name this movement a feminist movement rather than an equalist movement.
So, if you do a quick Google search for the definition of feminism, the first result that comes up is the advocacy of women's rights on the ground of the equality of sexes. But that's not solely what it is for me. I believe feminism is also about uplifting the feminine nature prevalent inside all of us, including men, that has been suppressed by the patriarchal society we live in.
To treat women with respect, yeah, I think that's feminism. I think if it means giving women equal opportunity, then that's feminism, and I'm all for that.
The idea that men and women should be and are not currently treated equally in the socio-political and professional world.
Is the promotion of gender equality.
It's more about the equality of the two genders and how both deserve rights and opportunities.
I believe both men and women were born equal and they are equal in abilities, and hence there should be no discrimination based on gender about how good someone is at something.
The thing about feminism is you have to do it, not talk about it. And it's important to do that in your daily life. I certainly realized that I have to do much more of it after my daughter came along, and I realized that if I have to try to be a feminist, then I would have had to start perhaps staying at home, which is what I did, and it worked out just fine.
Being a feminist has given me a broader perspective.
It made me more empathetic as a person and has allowed me to be more in touch with my emotions.
It also doesn't cloud my judgment.
I have to deal with 3 women in the house, and I think that itself has helped me become a feminist.
Now, I can't really pin down one single event that has made me a feminist because it's been a process that's still going on. Even now, every time I recognize traces of toxic masculinity that are prevalent in me, I try identifying them and actively work on removing them from my system. So it's a constant process when it comes to being a feminist.
I have so many friends, female friends, who aren't allowed to stay out late at night past a certain time as if they're with a small group of friends, and even they're not allowed to take taxis past like 9 o'clock at night, versus I and even their brothers sometimes are able to do a lot that they aren't allowed to do because they're men, because it's safer for them outside, and that shouldn't be the case. It should be equally safe or equally unsafe for men and women.
When everyone works towards achieving this goal of gender equality, it will automatically make it easier to achieve other goals as well. So if patriarchy can be defeated and gender equality is met, the goal of gender equality is met, then it'll be easier to create change in other areas as well in our world. And that's why I think it's not just a female's job to fight patriarchy, but it's everyone's job to do so.
If women are the only ones treating it like a big deal, then what ends up happening is it just looks like rage, and nobody responds to rage.
Patriarchy doesn't only affect women, but it also affects men. Due to the existence of a patriarchal society, men are often forced to assume roles that they might not be comfortable in. Abolishing patriarchy would actually make it would actually contribute towards a more progressive world that involves men and women to coexist.
Understanding the other side of the narrative. As a guy, it's extremely easy for us to create an us versus them situation and say that feminism is actually being used as a crusade against men. But no, that's not true, because feminism is about eradicating generations of injustice done to women by giving them the means to be on equal footing with men.
The way, societal and cultural understandings of gender and sex aren't going to change if half the people believe that, particularly the half that are suffering as a result. These concepts that I mentioned of equality and treating people the same at face value, it's not exactly something that's it's something that is fundamental to me. The fact that it's not fundamental to all people means that some people get those concepts of gender and culture from more dated, slightly archaic cultural constructs.
50% of the world's population is women, particularly in countries like India. They hardly comprise 20% of the working population, and I think as a nation we can never progress, we can never grow unless we get more and more women to work, not just in a workplace, but it could be running their businesses, running their own companies, and unless we're able to do that, it is not clear to me how as a nation, as humanity, we can progress.
Responsibility to progress a society cannot be just on the people oppressed. If anything, it needs to be more on the people who are privileged, because you've used that privilege and helped the historically oppressed people. And that's why it has to be a movement on both sides, both by the oppressed and people who have the privilege, so that they can create a society that is more equal for everyone.